Okay, did it start? Okay, this is probably the 30-second thing. Can you tell me when it does start and then hang up? Oh, I think it just did. All right, can you see it? Wonderful. All right, I'll hang up then. All right, thank you. Bye-bye. All right. Hello, everyone, welcome to the first general training session. We'll wait just a few more minutes for people to join and then we'll get started. All right, once again, welcome everyone to the first general training session. Probably wait like 1 or 2 more minutes before we get started, and then we'll be good to go. But thanks for all being here. All right, I think we'll get started now. So again, welcome everyone to our first general training session. Super excited to have you all here. Thank you for being here. And with that, we'll get started. So first, just to introduce myself. So my name is Danielle D, and I'm one of the Ignite student organizers. I'm also the co-captain of the Clueless number 11212 based in San Diego, California. And last year we won the World Championships with Team TechSpan, which is super exciting. I personally have 9 years of experience in FIRST programs, as well as 4 years of FTC experience specifically. Cool. So today what we're going to be talking about is quite a variety of things, starting with some Ignite updates, talking about team organization, what the season timeline might look like, different aspects of the competition, and then finally the assignment for this training session, and then we'll end with Q&A. So more specifically for Q&A, during live training sessions, you're more than welcome to put your questions into the YouTube live chat, and then we're going to answer them all at the end. So I won't be stopping during the presentation to answer questions. We'll save them for the end. And I'm guessing we might have like 15 minutes or so for that before the hardware training session starts. After the live training sessions, we encourage you to put your questions into the Discord server, the questions forum, which we recently created, where you could tag your questions as like hardware, software, outreach, general questions, and then we'll respond there. And then we'll also have a live Q&A office hour each week, which will happen on the Discord in a voice channel. You might already see the voice channel or the stage channel there already. And essentially, that's a time to ask questions about the training or assignments. It'll be staffed by both Ignite student organizers as well as international FTC veteran students who are volunteering to help answer questions. And this will be a little bit more interactive help since we can share our screen and help walk you through things rather than just answering via text. So those are your options. Feel free to do whatever you prefer, but we're just trying to make sure that we can answer your questions and there's resources no matter if you can attend live or not. Okay, so starting with Ignite updates. First, these are our training session dates. Oopsies. All right, there we go. These are training session dates. So these are posted as events on the Discord, and they're also scheduled or will be scheduled on the YouTube channel as well. August 17 is not yet confirmed, so that's why it's TBD and in italics. We'll confirm with you guys on the Discord once we do make that decision, as well as our second coaches training session, which if it happens, it'll happen after all of the other training sessions at the end. So we'll also let you know in the Discord when we confirm that one. Cool. If anyone needs a screenshot of this, take it now. Otherwise, I'll move on. Okay, moving on to our goals. So what we see as like veteran teams to FTC, there's two primary hurdles of trying to start a first team. The first one is having the knowledge and the skill set to actually go into the season. It's really, really difficult to just be thrown into a season and be told, build a robot, program all of this, here's the challenge, and just go. So that's the primary focus of the Ignite initiative, is to provide free basic training to all students and coaches that may be interested in starting an FTC team, and also providing free technical mentoring and support from experienced FTC teams throughout your guys' season to make sure that you guys can be successful and have the support during the entire season, not just during the training sessions. And then the second primary hurdle we find is funding. So that's why with any available funding we have, we're going to put that towards purchasing starter kits that we can loan to teams. But again, this is not the main focus of our Ignite program. Okay, so more in depth into the starter kit loaning, the priority is going to go to teams that demonstrate commitment, engagement, and initiative during the training sessions. And you can earn a kit or like the ability to keep it past the season by completing diligence milestones, which are essentially going to be small check-ins to make sure that you guys are making progress during the season. You're all still meeting, working towards whatever your goals were, and still going as a team essentially. And if you complete those, then we might give you the kit to keep, and you'll be able to earn it that way. Otherwise, in principle, the kits will be returned to Ignite at the end of each season. And then we'll restart this process of loaning them out. A quick disclaimer though, that there's no guaranteed kit loan for teams that meet the minimum eligibility, and we'll discuss the minimum eligibility shortly. It's really dependent on the number of teams that we're going to be creating in South Africa and the amount of available funding that we have. Both are numbers that we don't have predictions for at this point, so we have no idea how many teams will be able to receive the loans. And yeah, okay. That being said, First Tech Challenge teams, they always rely on funding from companies, grants, etc. So teams like Clueless or the TextPan team, or basically all the other teams out there, are responsible for sending their own cold emails out to companies and trying to secure their funding that way. So the way I want to see it, or the way I'd like you guys to see it as well, is that the starter kits are kind of like a boost to teams that we are able to provide starter kits to, but we definitely encourage teams to be able to seek out their own funding, which is why during our second general session next week, we'll be providing some training and resources for how to seek out that funding for your team so you can also be, to an extent, financially independent. Cool. All right, so talking about that minimum eligibility, I'm not going to read each of these points exactly. You're more than welcome to scan the QR code, which will take you to a document that has all of these minimum eligibility requirements listed out. Um, and that's also posted in the announcements channel on the Discord if you'd like that. But essentially, these are just to make sure that all of the teams we may loan a kit to were engaged during training and they have the right skill set and knowledge to be able to participate through the season. And we feel confident giving you guys a starter kit loan. All right, I'll give you guys another second to scan that QR code if you want to. Cool. Okay, couple things I want to emphasize. So we require all of the students in this program to attend the general training and either the hardware or the software training, although we highly recommend that students attend all three. And the reason for that is one, because it'll help students determine which areas they like to work in more, whether that's the hardware side of the technical or the software side. But it'll also help make sure that every student has foundational skills. So when they go on to teams later, they're able to help out in multiple areas, which is going to be especially helpful for smaller teams where everyone's kind of all hands on deck everywhere to work together and be able to overcome obstacles. And the second thing I want to emphasize is that we're not tracking attendance through being on the YouTube stream live. Um, we can't tell who's watching the video when. And so we're going to be tracking attendance through the completion of assignments, which are just going to be a small Google form. And the assignment will be explained at the end of each training session. And so your name and stuff will be recorded there. And from those Google form responses, we'll be able to check off who attended which sessions. Sorry. However, the benefit of attending live is that we can answer your questions during the stream, which might be helpful to some people. But again, we have resources, as I explained earlier, for asking and getting your questions answered at later times, not on the live stream. Cool. Moving on to the timeline for the season. So roughly speaking, it'll look like this. The season is going to release on September 7th, meaning the challenge is going to come out. Exactly what we're coding our robots and building our robots to do will come out on that date. And then you'll have about a month or two of we've allotted to build the starter kits robot using the instructions provided, which will make sure you guys have a foundational solid robot that you can work off of and improve from there. November will be the first scrimmage, so friendly competition where you can just get a feel for what the competitions are going to look like, what the setup is, and just get a feel for the competition in general. And then November to December, we hope that teams will be able to pick one part of the robot that they can innovate or improve. Whether that's, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Whether that's like the part that picks up different items on the field or drops those parts off, or your drivetrain and motors there, whatever it is, just picking one section on the robot that you can innovate and improve. And then step 5 is basically the same thing, going through that process of iterating, improving, fixing your robot. And then finally into January will be the regional tournament, which is your actual competition where you're competing with other teams, and that'll be a great experience for everyone. Um, Moving on to team organization. So team organization, or we typically will see teams split up into three subteams, which are hardware, software, and outreach or business. So um, while these three are kind of separated, we do encourage teams and team members to be working in multiple areas so that they're able to help out their team in different areas. And it also just prevents the team from working in a silo. So more specifically, hardware is going to look like things like computer-aided design, developing different subsystems of the robot, assembling the robot, and also mechanical. While software might look for programming. So there's two parts that they're going to be programming. One is a driver-controlled period where the drivers of the robot actually get controllers and can manually operate the robot. And then there's also the autonomous period, which is they have to operate the robot from they cannot operate the robot actually. So it's the robot doing it all on its own at the beginning of each match. And then the outreach and business section is kind of the most broad. So outreach can look like either connect events or motivate events, which we'll discuss at the end of this session. It's also managing the finances of the team, so sponsorships, grants, budgeting, and then it's also like PR and documentation. So a kind of a broad range of areas. A lot of teams will encourage each member to do either hardware or software and outreach, so that every member is doing outreach and able to contribute to these more general responsibilities of the team. And then for any team, we do recommend that there's at least two on hardware and at least two on software because it can be pretty overwhelming for just one person to be working on. But that's generally how the work is going to be divided on a team. And it'll really come down to whatever works best for your team, how large your team is, and other factors. But this is kind of the general layout. Okay, moving on to leadership structure. So again, this is really flexible for each team. Each team is different. There's a different number of students, so you really need to figure out what works best for you. A lot of teams will do one lead per sub-team, hardware, software, and outreach, and other teams will do one captain or co-captains. So it's really dependent on your team and what works best for you guys, what works best for your coach. But these are some examples of how a leadership structure could be outlined. All right, moving on to meetings and communication. I'm on a live stream. Mom, I'm live right now. I'm sorry, I can't talk. Okay, sorry about that. Moving on to meetings and communication. So we suggest that each team has 1 to 2 full team meetings each week. And then in addition to that, having sub-team meetings within like your hardware team or your software team or your outreach team. Also, like between hardware and software, those meetings can be helpful to just align. Those are great opportunities to just check in with everyone, make sure we're all on the same page. And then we suggest that you have communication via Discord or an alternative platform. So for Discord, we're going to be setting up, basically you can see it on this right hand side, this image. We'll put together like a category for you guys. It's private tiered team with these channels. We might also add like a voice channel and some other channels for you guys so you have some more space just to yourselves. And this will be great because it'll be open just to your team and whatever your mentor veteran FTC team, um, they'll also be on your channels. So it'll be the easiest way to connect with them, align with them, and just work. But it's also in a private setting. It'll like no other team can see another team's channels. It'll just be up to you guys. Okay. Onto suggested resources. So the first one here is a shared calendar. We highly, highly, highly recommend that each team does have some kind of shared calendar, whether that's Google Calendar or any other source. And this is especially important because team members are living in different places. And it's just a good reminder to join meetings. It puts you guys all on the same page. So it's really helpful to have that shared calendar so you make sure that happens. And then some teams will use a team organizer software such as Trello, which helps manage your tasks. Some teams use it, some teams don't. Again, it's totally up to you. And then for meetings, Google Meet, Zoom, Discord, any other similar platforms, all of these are great to conduct online meetings, which are much easier when you just need to check in or discuss something simple. Obviously, you can't build a robot, but these are pretty efficient for just having simple discussions. And then finally, some platforms like Google Drive and Canva to have a shared Google Drive folder or something. It really makes sure that all of your documents and your presentations are shared with the team and that you can collaborate together. And then we find that Google Drive is great for the more functional aspects, and then Canva is great for more of the artistic, creative sides of whatever you might be doing. Okay, moving on to the competition. So there are many opportunities for growth that first emphasizes that are both technical and non-technical. So starting with the technical, you'll have areas like innovation, design, your engineering design process, which is like how you iterate and improve and brainstorm ideas for whatever problem you're approached with. And then also robust software. So all of these steps can look sort of along the lines of finding one area of your robot that you can improve and innovate, like we were mentioning earlier during the season timeline, or coding the driver controlled and autonomous periods could also be part of those like technical areas for growth. And then in terms of non-technical areas, which we'll be getting a little further into soon, um, so the first one is connect, and the second one is motivate. So connect events are essentially networking with the industry, and motivate events are being able to promote STEM and FIRST. So that could look like reaching out to and learning from STEM professionals, or sharing with your community, your friends, your family, or whoever else about STEM and FIRST programs. All right, and then today we'll be going more in depth into the Connect and Motivate events, and then in the hardware and software training, we'll go more in depth into all of these technical areas. Cool. And then when you're at competition, aside from just your robot game, your engineering portfolio and your presentation are your opportunity to share with the judges what your team has been up to for the entire season. So your portfolio is a written document that's max 15 pages long, and it'll cover things like your team's story and identity, your engineering content, which is like hardware and software, which can include things like drawings, photos, descriptions of what you did, why you did it that way, what worked well and what didn't, and what lessons you learned. So all of those kind of things would fit into your engineering content. You'll also talk about any outreach activities you might have had and connections that you made with industry or other first teams. And then your presentation will be pretty similar in terms of content, but you'll be with your whole team presenting for 5 minutes talking to the judges about what you've done for that season. And then that'll be followed by 10 minutes of Q&A, which will be on your robot, about your team, about your outreach events, basically anything you discussed in your presentation or in your portfolio they might ask about to get some more information about your team. All right, so first we're going to look further into the connecting with industry professionals or connect events. So these are essentially networking opportunities and are great for a variety of reasons. So the four main ones that I've listed here are you get to learn about various STEM fields and how they're applied. So what might someone who's interested in robotics do, or mechanical engineering, or electrical engineering, and being able to see what real life applications or real world applications of that looks like can be really useful for students. Um, and then getting feedback on your robot is something you can often ask companies or industry professionals to do for you too. So obviously this would be further into the season when you do have a robot, but getting feedback on what you can improve on it or how to address certain issues that you found or all of those things are really helpful to get someone who has such like industry experience. And then the last one is being able to build a network for future opportunities for your team and also potential sponsors. So we'll go more in depth into sponsors into the next general training session, but it'll be really useful to get a sponsor, especially, and it'll be easier to get a sponsor when you do have some kind of connection or relation to them already and they've already worked with your team and they see the potential in you guys. They'll be more likely to sponsor then. Okay, so how do we go about connecting with industry professionals? So first, you want to establish the who. Who are you going to reach out to? Who do you want to connect with? And to find this, we recommend using your contacts and, of course, your parents' contacts, your coaches' contacts, whoever they might know in like the robotics or the engineering or STEM fields that might seem interesting. And then, in addition to people that you might already be connected with, we also highly recommend that you guys use the internet. So, Google robotics companies or STEM companies or engineering companies local to you, and then reach out to them. Um, So before we get to reaching out, we need to identify what do you want to get out of this? You need to identify what you're hoping to learn. So if we look back to that previous slide here, there's a whole plethora of reasons that you might want to learn from someone. So maybe it's one of these reasons, maybe it's something more specific or different. Whatever it is, you want to make sure it's really clear what you want to learn and what you want to get out of meeting with a professional. And then the final step is actually reaching out. So if you have someone's contact, you might reach out via like text or another communication. But for most of them, we'll probably be writing a brief email that'll introduce your team, what you're hoping to learn, and what interaction you want from the company. Okay, moving on to motivate. So motivating the community, it can be in a variety of different ways. So for example, it could look like sharing STEM with your community through workshops or demos or other programs, and promoting first programs in philosophy. So for example, gracious professionalism, which is this idea championed by First, that you can have really fierce competition, but have mutual game at the same time. So just kind of ideas like this that you can spread in your community and help develop them and teach them to others. So, how do we motivate others? First, you want to identify a STEM skill that your team has that other teams may not. So, for example, one initiative that TextPen had, which was to calculate the circumference of a wheel, which is something they knew how to do, but maybe other peoples could benefit from learning that. And then the second step is identify who could benefit from learning it. So they said that primary school kids might help by learning this. Okay, and then they need to find a way to reach out to that group. So again, that could be through contacts that you have, contacts your parents have, your coaches have, or just Google searching like a primary school and finding an email there that you can reach out to the school. And then from there, you need to make a plan. So how are you going to reach out to them? How are you going to teach them? And then finally, you need to execute your plan and actually go forward with that workshop. So some other examples of Motivate events could be like arranging local demos in the community at, say, a STEM event, or just a family event, or at some school nearby you that you want to share robotics with. It could also be like one of the things that Clueless has done recently is teach a Python coding workshop at a library for students in the area. And then sorry, going back to Connect events really quick. An example of a Connect event could look very simple. Like, for example, the Clueless, we reached out to a local university's engineering department nearby us. We had absolutely no contact there, but they connected us with some undergrad students that were on a robotics team competing at the university level. And so they were able to come over to where we work and gave us some feedback on our robot. So you definitely don't need to have connections to be able to be successful with Connect and or Motivate events. Google searching is plenty useful, but having contacts is also useful. So use what you have, and if you don't have it, don't worry. You can still be very successful. Okay, and the last thing I want to talk about is the assignment for today. So the assignment is essentially going to be running through both a Connect event and a Motivate event. So everything up to actually executing the event. So all the planning, identifying who you can reach out to, your plan, how you're going to reach out to them, what are you hoping to learn, how are you going to execute it. All of those questions that you can see on the screen right now are essentially what you're going to be answering on the Google Form assignment. So if you guys want to scan the QR code here, it'll take you directly to the assignment. Otherwise, we'll also put it into the comments or the description section of this video and post it in the announcements channel in our Discord. So you'll be able to access it without this QR code as well. A quick reminder that completing this assignment is the equivalent of your attendance because, again, we can't tell who's watching the YouTube live streams. And then individuals, so the majority of you probably individual students who are not in a group or don't know who they might be working with yet because we haven't formed teams. For you guys, please just brainstorm at least one event for each Connect and one event for Motivate, and you're only required to plan one out for both. However, I know we do have some teams or groups of students that already know they want to work together because they're buddies or they all live in the same area and they might have that kind of group formed already. For you guys, it would be great if you work together and brainstorm a list for each the Connect and the Motivate events, and then answer the questions and go through the exercise for 2 to 3 of your ideas. But we think you can really benefit from starting to work together since you already know you want to be a team. And then for coaches, so coaches, if you're already associated with a group, which the majority of you are not, because again, we haven't formed the teams yet, um, you can guide your group if you have one, but otherwise, you're not required to complete this assignment. However, we do need you to fill out the Google form. So just indicate you're a coach on there's a question about if you're a coach under the assignment, and then write coach for all of the other questions that are required to answer before you submit the form. Because once again, submitting this form is necessary for attendance, so we'll need that from both coaches and students. Okay, so a reminder that hardware training is going to be at 8 p.m., so we have about half an hour before that. I'm going to open it up for any questions that you guys have, so if you guys want to put those in the chat, and then I'll start answering them. Reminder that hardware training is going to be at 8 p.m., so we have about half an hour. Any questions? I'm not seeing anything in the chat so far. Okay, cool. So again, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, but if you guys do have any, feel free to put it onto the Discord channel or attend those Q&A office hours so that you're able to ask your questions live. And we'll respond to those as soon as we can. But for now, if you guys want to start working on the assignment, great. You have about half an hour before hardware training. If you need a break before that, um, whatever works best for you. But thank you all for joining. I will see you again next week or another time. All right. Bye, everyone.